Hello and welcome to On Deadline. I'm Dennis Owens.
I'm Kendra Nichols. Amanda is off this week. Thanks for joining us. So if you're listening for the first time, we are journalists for ABC 27 News in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
But on this podcast, we talk about issues that affect people all over.
So these are the conversations you don't hear on the news. We're different generations with different experiences, so we don't always agree.
But we do get very personal, very real, and hopefully get you thinking. We're recording on Monday, October 16th, and today we're talking about the State Police Academy cheating scandal of last year, or was it a scandal? More than 40 cadets were fired or forced to resign over allegations of cheating while in the State Police Academy in Hershey. But ABC 27 has learned that not everyone who was forced out actually cheated. A trooper by the name of Kevin Kaplafka had graduated from the academy in the previous class, was working on the job as a trooper when he got caught up in the scandal. He freely admits giving his study guide and notes to cadets that were behind, but insists that was not only allowed, but encouraged at the State Police Academy. He was forced out, fought for unemployment compensation. At first, State Police fought him on that. It went to a hearing where the Unemployment Compensation Board ruled in his favor and in addition said State Police never even proved that cheating occurred or that Kevin had cheated. Joining us is Kevin's lawyer, Bruce George. Welcome this morning.
Thank you for having me.
You are also a former state trooper who protected a number of governors, right? You were on the gubernatorial detail.
From Governor Casey to Governor Corbett.
Awesome. So tell us, so I think that gives you a unique perspective. You've been through the academy.
Yes.
So you know from what you speak in that regard. And you also have Kevin as a client.
Yes.
Give us your thoughts. So I kind of gave the thumbnail sketch. Tell us basically what happened here.
Well, basically, Kevin had an interview with Internal Affairs about this cheating scandal when he was a trooper. During that interview, he admitted that he helped out fellow cadets, which was encouraged to do. Which senior cadets were encouraged to help out.
And let me just explain. So when you're at the State Police Academy in Hershey, there's two classes there at the same time, right? So there's a class that's about to graduate, and then a class that comes in behind them that's a few months behind them, and then the group graduates, that group moves up to being senior cadets, and then another group comes in behind them, right? So at the academy, there's typically two classes at a time?
Yeah, they're usually overlapping. One's about 3 or 4 months ahead of the other.
I think when you say help, we want to know what help means. Give examples of when he says he helped them.
He just said you need to focus, you need a general... It's hard to explain here.
Knowledge? A general knowledge, maybe?
Well, I know in the story when we interviewed Kevin, he said he would tell them to focus on section, and he would throw a number out there, and that would be the DUI section, for instance, but that there were 24 sub-chapters under that.
Yeah, he would tell them to focus on general sections.
Which, from what I'm hearing, instructors at the academy did the very same thing.
No, the instructors actually gave them the question and answer.
And you're saying Kevin never said, question 5 will be this, and this is the answer.
Not even close.
I remember, back in high school, in college, I can remember professors saying, study this, it will be on the test. I can remember going to class, other upperclassmen who had a class and saying, oh, you had this person for history. Well, what were some of the tests? And they'd be like, oh, study this and this. He likes to focus on that. Is that really cheating? I guess that's the question.
I don't think so.
And is that kind of a thing. In fact, I think Kevin used the terms that they would clear their throat or stomp their feet or use a louder voice when it was something that was going to be on the test. And in fact, he said to me that much of the notes, much of the material that they were seeing on a bullet points and a big screen would be in black, and then all of a sudden something would show up in red, and the stuff that was in red, that was clearly going to be on the test.
And that's the instructors doing that.
The instructors doing that.
They'd pound on the podium, stomp their feet. And after a while, they would just say, you need to know this is going to be on the test. I can give you a really good example of how they review for the test. Back in the Inspector General's report on page 13, 14, and 15 is the clearest example of how they teach. They went into the computer lab, the instructor, and gave a 48 out of 50 questions off the actual test. In the computer lab, they're allowed to type the gist of the question and the answer. They would have a review. They'd say, how many feet from a fire hydrant? Someone would say, raise their hand, give an answer. That was when they get the right answer, they put it in their study guide.
So they're taking, and these are study sessions you're talking about in the computer lab,
Well,
right?
that's a test review.
Yeah.
No, they
Well,
stand.
a test review is a study session. I mean, you're studying for the test.
Well-
But you're writing. You're allowed to take notes
Yes.
and write in books.
Yes,
And
you're
the
allowed-
tests are open book.
Well, no, there's some parts. Some tests are open book, but most of them are true, false, multiple choice.
Okay.
They're open book tests. I think they have 2 of them, where they're told to write in the book. They're told you can mark in your book, make sure you know this section with the subsection, because if you do not put the subsection, it is an incorrect answer. But getting back to the Inspector General's report, the 40 out of this is how they review. I don't
Standard operating procedure.
I don't understand why it didn't get more play.
What, the fact that the Inspector General was basically saying, well, this is the things that people are being accused of being wrong is what is actually happening.
Exactly. And
so now you're a little older than Kevin. I won't say how much older, but because you're already retired,
right?
You're in and out. Was that the way it worked when you were there?
Well, I went 26 years ago, and computers weren't.
But were they stomping and raising their voice?
See, in my classes, no, because we were out the 49-town gap. We had troopers from the road and crime people from the road who actually would know what you needed to know, and they would tailor lesson plans to it. I heard about it in other classes, but I didn't have that experience.
And we should point out the criminal, is it called the Criminal Justice Handbook or whatever
Yes.
that book is? It's like 3,000 pages.
Yes.
So there's a lot of stuff in there.
Yes.
And being able to know more generally what to study as opposed to what not to study could be a help.
Could help, but it's not, because you got to go back. You got to understand what the instructors do. They tell you what's on the test. This is
Right.
frustrating because no one's understanding that. They teach to the test.
So they're
But
teaching
don't
to the
teachers
test.
do that now? Like I said, I remember teachers in college and high school saying, this graph will be on the test, know it. How is that cheating?
Well, that's what the state police are claiming. They cheated. They even sharing a study guide with your questions and answers that I have. If Dennis came to me and said, hey, what'd you have on this test? I'm like, this is what I had 4 months ago on my test.
Right.
I don't know what's on your test, because they're told that their tests are different.
Now, the Inspector General report showed they didn't change those tests often enough, and that's pox on their house. That's not the fault of anybody that's going through the academy, because they have no control over that.
Exactly.
But so before we get into the Inspector General, because that's kind of after the thing, let's back up to December of 2015. Basically, apparently some cheat, quote unquote, what was called a cheat sheet or notes, somebody dropped them in the academy, and that's what kind of started this entire investigation, this entire thing, this quote unquote cheating scandal.
Allegedly, they found it on the floor.
Yeah, they say they found it. You're not believing anything that's coming out of there.
Trust me.
Spoken like a true lawyer over there.
If you drop a piece of paper in the academy, someone's picking it up before they're told.
So anyway,
we'll let that go.
Okay, but we'll let that go, because that's what started it, and I know because we were the station that kind of broke the story about the cheating scandal, and there's no question that state police felt that there was some cheating, at least in their view, and that they were then set about investigating it pretty thoroughly, and then a lot of people that had dreams of being state troopers saw those dreams crushed.
Yes.
So, and Kevin, who was already out and already on the road as a trooper in the Lycans barracks, he gets called into it because one of the guys who got caught up in the cheating scandal used his name to suggest that there was a scandal going on, and that's how he got tied into it.
Right.
So Kevin was already he was already a trooper, so he wasn't even in the academy when this so-called cheating happened.
No, he was in the Lycans barracks for about a month. But then, when he got interviewed by Internal Affairs, the next day he was put on restricted duty, which basically you work on station.
So you don't get to go out on calls,
No.
and you're just basically at the barracks.
Exactly.
And again, he gave a study guide or said, concentrate on this section. I remember them asking
He just wrote down 15 general sections.
That he said, concentrate on these.
It said, this is what I had.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll... Yeah,
Is there any definition anywhere where the state police define cheating anywhere, what they believe to be cheating, or...
So they say not to cheat, and we often say not to cheat, but they don't say what cheating is.
Well,
exactly.
Well, when I think of cheating, I think here's a copy of the test. We got a copy of the test. Here's the questions, the answers. That's, to me, is you cheating. You're getting the test. You're passing it around.
Right.
I don't know that... And I'm sure people disagree, but like I said, I specifically remember, I don't think a teacher teaching and saying, hey, concentrate on this, or somebody else saying, the DUI code is very important, how is that cheating?
It's not. But you got to understand, every day they tell them this is going to be on the test. One form or way of by pounding, just basically telling them. In 2 days, like I said before, 2 days before the test, they do a review off the test booklet, and you're allowed to write anything down they say.
So then why did they have this reaction where more than 40 cadets are let go? And
I have no idea.
And we should point out, we've repeated attempts to state police to respond to this story, that maybe there was overzealous prosecution here, or maybe they didn't quite get it right, but nonetheless 40-some people lost their jobs. They have not responded, and we're going to continue to try to get a response.
But again, about getting back to Kevin, he was never tied to that cheat sheet, that alleged cheat sheet. He was never tied to it. That his investigation was something completely different.
because his name came up.
His name came up more or less from someone, and
Well, somebody basically said, hey, I got the study guide from him.
Right,
Or he told me what sections to look at.
I got these general sections, and each and every one of those cadets said they were just general sections.
So they call him downtown or internal affairs, whatever. And over a period of how many months did this go on that he was unrestricted duty? It was many months, wasn't it?
Well, from January till he was forced to resign October 6th. 10 months.
10 months.
Yes.
Did they said resign or quit, or we're firing you, or?
Well, they basically told him, if you walk in that door, you're going to be fired. His station commander called him on his way from Likens to Harrisburg, said, you are going to be terminated. I will write your resignation letter because he has top secret clearances. And if you have the accusation on your record, you lose all that.
Now let's back up. So Kevin has top. So Kevin is not. He was not the traditional 20-year-old kid that went to the academy. He has a wife and kids.
Yes.
And he was a Marine, and he was in the CIA, and he has top secret clearances, and in fact was an instructor at the CIA academy.
Yes.
So he knows kind of what these law enforcement academies are about because he used to teach at one.
Exactly.
So I guess I'm just confused. This is the kind of guy you would probably want to have on the state police.
Yes.
So it was shocking to say the least. So why did he not? I'm thinking, why not let them fire you? Doesn't that give you a little bit more ammunition when you come back and try to sue? Or I'm just asking.
Because he did sign a letter of resignation.
I understand he was protecting his reputation.
That's it.
So that was the only reason.
He was in public service his whole life, and he doesn't want that on his accusation on his record. Because if he was fired for
Cheating.
allegedly cheating, that he could never get that back from the federal government.
You were part of the culture of the state police. That you too were a public servant and for more than 2 decades. Why do you think they're not responding here? What do you think is going on here? Well, as a guy who was in the organization,
I'll tell you why they didn't respond to us. They were told by an unemployment compensation board that they were wrong,
and that's what prompted our story. By the way, let's back up. So Kevin applies for unemployment. At first, he gets it. Then
the referee
said no.
Then we appealed immediately
to the Unemployment Compensation Review Board.
Yes, and it usually takes 2 months, but it took them 6 months. They reviewed the whole record. That's why we have a delay.
And you had a hearing in which you had some of the people that investigated him.
The state police, yes.
The state police and Kevin were on the stand.
Exactly.
And at the end of that, the Unemployment Compensation Review Board comes out and says, you didn't prove cheating.
No.
He's entitled to unemployment.
No,
and
we had that hearing at the referee.
Right.
Review board just reviews the transcript and the evidence that was put in.
Oh, I got you.
They go back and did a fact finding.
And what did state police say on the record then? They had to talk there. What did they say?
Well, the investigator who investigated Kevin said, I do not have any documentation that anything he gave were answers to the test. In other words, I don't have any evidence of it.
And in their findings, the review board said state police didn't prove cheating here.
Right. He didn't violate any of their policies. Also, the state police, the Unemployment Compensation Board of Review, dismissed their testimony.
Yeah, he did say that I think the Unemployment Compensation Review Board said it was not credible, that the state police's testimony was not credible, that they were trying to say it was
in their
cheating.
decision, they said Kevin testified credibly.
I feel like this opens up a can of worms.
Well, it does, because now you got 40 people,
right?
And maybe there was some cheating. Now let's talk about the Inspector General. So the State Police Commissioner Tyree Blocker says we want the Inspector General to come in here and do an independent investigation into what is going on at the academy. I just had the Inspector General, Bruce Beamer, on This Week in Pennsylvania just this past Sunday as we speak to you. And I nailed him down on the specific of they never investigated the veracity of the claims by the state police against any of the cadets or Kevin. They were just merely called in to look at what was the State Police Academy doing structurally that could be problematic and could lead to cheating. And they, as Bruce has already pointed out in some of their findings, found that, yes, that the instructors were giving people answers to tests, and that they didn't really define what cheating is and what cheating isn't, and that they did encourage senior cadets to help junior cadets. And they needed to change their tests, I believe, was some of the things that you need to do.
Well, if you keep the same test year after year, I mean.
And they also suggested that they rotate instructors more frequently, that those instructors be rotated in and out on a more frequent basis than somebody being there for too long. Right? So all of that stuff. But the bottom line is the Inspector General never looked at the accuracy of whether state police had justification in letting these people go.
No. They just recommended other things that they need to do going forward.
Procedurally.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like from their investigation, was it more on the instructors than the cadets?
The Inspector General? Or
yes. Or
the whole academy, the way they ran it, the way they taught to the test. I talked at that example where in the 142nd class, they took them into the computer lab, went over the test, gave them 48 out of 50 answers. They typed it in on their computers with the answer. Now, that's a study guide. Mm-hmm. According to the state police, I'm a senior cadet, you're a junior cadet, I can give you that study guide. Because they have no written policy on it. And we can study together. They have no written policy on that. But the thing is, they tell me that there's different tests, and I give it to you, I'd say that's on my test, not yours. I don't know what's on your test. Like you said earlier, if I knew that you were taking a test and I had the test in my hand and I just gave you questions or answers to that test, that's cheating. But when I think of cheating is like we're taking the same test, I'm looking at you.
Right.
That's cheating.
Sure, looking over the shoulder or copying.
Or if I tell you the answer to number 7 is C,
mm-hmm.
like a specific, that's...
Instructors did that. They did that.
But I think it's kind of... I feel like all teachers teach to a test, but if you put the actual test up on the board and say, this is what you're going to see tomorrow and here's the answers.
They hold it in their hand and they say, let's have a review. And as you see the test booklet, and you can write it down.
So why are these cadets dismissed then? They weren't...
Well, that's the big question.
Yeah.
Well, some of them went in there and they just broke them down and said, you cheated. And like some of them were sitting there like, if that's your definition of cheating, I guess I cheated. And just got them like, we're done here. And they went out and resigned or got fired.
But they're still mystified as to what happened.
Yeah. If you sit in there and they tell you what's on the test, then you get fired for something that
that's
they
what I'm
created.
saying. Yeah, I don't.
So Bruce George, more than 2 decades in the state police. What the heck is going on here? Give me a. What do you make of it?
I'm mystified. I can't think.
Governor Ed Rendell loved that word, by the way. Mystified.
Mystified.
Yeah, I'm mystified.
Okay. I have no idea. I don't understand the administration. I don't understand what they're doing. In fact, here's an example of what they're doing. They just to get more people in. They got rid of the polygraph.
Was that recent?
Explain that. So you would have to take a polygraph before you got into the academy?
Well, I didn't, thank God. I'm not going to lie. But they used to do polygraphs. It weeds out people and also deters people from coming in to the state police. Now, anybody can come in.
But you didn't have to take it.
No.
So anybody could come in back then.
Yeah.
But he's saying they upped their standards and now they're pulling them back again.
That's just an example of what the administration's doing. They're lowering their standards.
And
they get more numbers. They talk about integrity, and they get rid of the polygraph, which deters people and also weeds out people at the same time.
And the irony is, by all accounts, and having spent some time with him, Kevin seems like a high integrity guy, and that's a guy that's now doesn't have a job.
I wish he was here.
State Representative Joe Petrarca, and what's he doing now, by the way? He's driving a truck?
Driving a truck.
With all that experience and all that knowledge of law enforcement, he's driving a truck.
Yes.
What does he want to happen here?
He just wants accountability right now.
What does that mean?
He wants somebody to up at the headquarters to say, hey, we made a mistake with Kevin.
And maybe others.
Well, I'm worried about Kevin. I'm not worried about others. He's my client.
Right.
I speak on his behalf. And I've spoken to him since your story broke about 25 cadets now. They found me. But that's what he wants.
So they're
accountability.
they're of the same belief, though, right? That they were wronged.
Yes.
He doesn't want his job back?
That's for a later discussion. Yeah.
Well, he seems like he's truly a cop mentality.
Yeah. Unfortunately. Yeah.
So let's talk about Representative Joe Petrarca for a moment. He is the Democratic chair of the Judiciary Committee, which means he's a minority chair. He said to us in our story he believes many of these cadets were wronged, that they weren't treated fairly. They did not get quote-unquote due process, which is quite ironic that a law enforcement operation wouldn't give someone due process. If anybody should know about due process, you would think it would be state police, right? But I guess there are no protections when you're a cadet and you're still a probationary trooper. You really don't have the union protection or anybody else that can go to bat for you.
More or less, you're an at-will employee
and they
to
can
an extent.
To an extent, but that doesn't mean they can unfairly get rid of you in this, right? So that's what we're going to find out.
Yeah, we're going to find that out sooner or later.
But so Representative Petrarca wants he doesn't feel that they were given due process. He wants a hearing on the whole issue, but I don't really hear too much other clamoring at the Capitol for such a thing.
I haven't heard anything.
But these troopers and these young men and women are from all over the state, right? So
Yes.
they all have state representatives and senators
Yes,
that they should be talking to.
I've told them to call your state rep and your state senator and ask for a public hearing on this.
Do you think at some point the state police is going to have to respond to this? I mean, you said, I think quite clearly, we're not going away.
No, we're not going away. But getting back, they after the Unemployment Compensation Board came back with their decision, they had an opportunity
To appeal
to the Commonwealth Court, and they didn't, because I told you why, because their position's indefensible, and they want everything to go away quietly. They're just playing four corners with some of these cadets, too, because their statute of limitations will come up early next year.
And that makes me think, are we going to have 40-plus
Yes,
lawsuits now that taxpayers are going to have to pay
as a taxpayer,
for?
you don't like to see that, especially
right.
when dollars are tight, especially law enforcement dollars.
Well, it cost them about $100,000 to train each cadet. So 40 of them, that's about $4 million.
Wow.
That
$4
we're
million.
already out, already gone.
And now they could potentially come back and say, has
I
there
don't
been any policy change? Dennis, do you know, have they made any changes to the policy at state police level to deal with this now?
Well, he's talking about the polygraph. I do think there's been some policy changes on admissions. Tell me about drug testing too. Is that
I don't know.
did that
about
go
that.
away? Did they
I
used to
have
do
no
drug
idea. I
testing
hope
and now
not.
they don't?
It'd
But
be interesting to find out.
But they said they were instituting. I know when the Inspector General issued his report, they were making fixes to that.
Right.
And I think the Inspector General even said yes, they were moving forward in
not
making
having
some of
the-
those
not
systemic.
having the same test for the
well,
for
right.
10 years
Changing
in a row.
your test once in a while.
Well, the
That's
law
it.
is the law. You got to understand, it doesn't change that much.
Right, and that's true. That's true.
And when you're teaching to the test, you're teaching the law. There's only so much.
Right.
You
And
should
especially
not
as a
get-
trooper, how much of that law do you need? There's certain the
There's-
DUI law you need to know, and
You're
there's
you're some of your criminal statutes,
Right.
and you know, like speeding, because a lot of when you start running radar, you write a lot of people for speeding, stuff like that. They just teach you what you need to know on the road so you have an idea what you're doing. Because when you go on the road, you have two 30-day coach pupil. You get evaluated every day on anything you do, your paperwork, your driving, the way you handle yourself at an incident or something. Every day you're evaluated. You get two of them, 30 days. That's where you basically learn the job.
that's where the rubber meets the road.
You have to know where to at least be able to find stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
is teaching to the test cheating? That's the big question.
I don't know. You tell me. I don't think so. I don't think they cheated. From what I know Kevin didn't cheat. I have no doubt in my mind.
So, and I'll ask this for a third time. Where do we go from here? Where is this?
Like I said, we're in discussions with two other law firms that are interested in his case. You know, maybe a suit in federal court for Kevin. I don't know.
And maybe that's what it's going to take to get state police to respond, right? Because so after the unemployment compensation, after they lost, it went against them. They could have appealed that.
Yeah,
And
30
did
They had
days.
30 days and chose not to. Just kind of let it.
Well, if you're a taxpayer, you got to ask them. If I'm a taxpayer, I want to know what's going on up there. Why didn't they appeal? I want to know why they didn't appeal. It's easy. Just do a petition to the Commonwealth Court and say, Unemployment Compensation Board was wrong because this, and this.
What do you say to people that say, he's just out for a paycheck and that's how he wants to sue another? There's a long line of people that want to sue various state agencies.
He doesn't. He just wants accountability.
So the other 40-plus cadet, what could they come back and sue, and what would they be suing for? Just to get back into the academy, have another chance?
I have no idea what they're allowed to do. Like I said, I just have Kevin.
I know.
I've talked to them.
Give people an idea of what they could. I know you're just with Kevin, but could those cadets have a potential case? I guess in your mind, yes.
They could.
Right.
It all depends. It all depends if there's an attorney out there that wants to take their cases. Mm-hmm. And everyone's different because every interview they had, it's transcribed, and when you read them, they get them to admit to certain things after they beat them down, yell at them, swear at them.
And if these are younger guys, Kevin never at any point admitted cheating, right?
No.
But these are younger guys that maybe, they could be browbeaten.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
and taken advantage of.
Yeah, they could be taken advantage of. It's not hard. You can make them say anything you want them to.
So what's the timeline for Kevin? Is there a timeline at all at this point?
Good. He still has like another year, so he's not going away.
Finally, we'll hear a word from you, comments and questions you sent in, and I understand we're on topic today.
We are on topic today. So I looked up your story that ran a couple weeks ago about, and this is what some of our viewers are saying. So Douglas Smith says, referring to police, most of them are a bunch of hypocrites. They speed and get away with it. They lie and get away with it. I think they should have to see a psychiatrist every year to take an attitude test. They should have GPS on cars. If they speed when not in pursuit, they should get writs after so many, then they get terminated.
All right, Douglas, let me interject there for just a minute. I want to say, and maybe I'm naive and flag waver here, but most of the police officers that I encounter are decent guys and women, and they're doing the right job for the right reasons. And I know there's always a bad apple, right, that spoils the bunch. And that's what makes it interesting about this story we're talking about is it appears there may have been a mistake made at a higher level of the people that are supposed to be standing for truth and justice, and that's where the interesting thing is, did they make a mistake? Are they willing to make a mistake and own up to a mistake? But average police officers, I don't want to be throwing all of them under the bus, especially because I might get pulled over sometime later.
As a former trooper, I'm sure you've heard this before. They're all hypocrites, right?
Right.
Just like the weather guys always hear, you never get it right. You're like, I don't even need to respond to that.
No, I'm not going to respond to that. I read that one already.
All right. Okay. The next one is from Denise. And again, this was right under your story. So she was talking about your story in particular. She said, finally, I support you. Head should roll starting from the top down. They ruined many great cadets' reputations.
Thoughts?
That's basically what you've been saying.
I've been saying it all along. They've damaged their reputation. They've taken away their livelihoods. And you got to understand, a lot of these cadets, they're from small towns. People don't understand what goes into be a state trooper. It's like a 1.5-year process. They come and interview your parents, your siblings, your neighbors, your school teachers, people in your church, people in your community. They're proud, so-and-so is going to be a state trooper. Now they're home and they're
labeled
accused
a
cheater. Now, a lot of them are embarrassed.
All those people stood up for
him, yeah.
And especially if it's possible they did not, in fact, cheat.
Right.
That's a real kick in the teeth.
Yeah, that's people don't understand what goes into it. It's a big deal to be a state trooper.
We'll keep, as I say, pulling on the threads of this story and see what develops.
And then JD31, perhaps he would have been better off getting fired. That way he could have gotten his job back, plus the back pay he lost. Instead, he chose to resign, probably because he knows the truth of the matter. He wasn't forced to resign, and yes, they actually did cheat. The whole study guide defense is BS. It's getting old.
Wow.
So why did he resign? Why not say, I didn't do this. Go ahead and fire me, and I'll fight you later.
Well, he is fighting them, and he won. He beat the state police. He was a smart guy. He figured out a way to get him in court. If he got fired, they would just ignore him. This way, he made them come into the unemployment referee, then unemployment compensation. So he actually did it the right way, I think.
And I believe the Unemployment Compensation Board did say he was in fact forced to resign.
Yes.
So that was clear that state police
choice.
made clear. So that's one thing wrong about what
that
person just wrote. He was forced to resign.
Yeah, when they say we're firing you or you resign, it's basically we're firing
for unemployment compensation. If you know you're going into a termination, that's considered you're terminated. So you're entitled to unemployment.
All right, and then Casey Coble says the truth is slowly coming out, finally.
It always seems to be slow, doesn't it?
I guess the state police are just sitting on their hands up there. They don't worry about it. I don't know where the governor is. Yeah, he commented about it, so I'm sure that someone can get a comment out of him.
Reactions tend to be quick.
He was looking at me when he said this. Somebody can get a comment out of the governor.
Well, because
Yeah.
He did comment
The
on
next
it.
time I got access to him, I will ask him if he has a thought on this.
if you want access, I'll get you access.
Well, I think reaction to this was quick, but all the details have been slow to come out. I would agree with that.
More to come.
All right, and then just one last comment. This was actually on our podcast that we did before. We had John Sansanito from INA, security consultant, come on and talk about, in light of the Las Vegas shooting, what you should be doing in a situation like that. What you should be thinking about, having your own kind of personal security plan or something in place that when you go into places, you're looking where the exits are and things like that. Tammy Farling said, one of the best podcasts you've produced. John was a great speaker with valuable information. I've had this discussion with coworkers, church members, and my own family. Being prepared is one of the keys. So, Tammy, we appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you liked it and shared it with others. And it's unfortunately, like we said, a time when we have to think like that. And getting your brain wrapped around that and starting to do it regularly makes it
Mentally preparing
Right.
for the fact that something could happen at any minute.
right.
And I guess that's life in America these days. Well, if you'd like to check out the links to the stories, articles, and videos we discussed, you can find them in our show notes on our website, abc27.com. To get On Deadline delivered directly to your phone, tablet, or computer each week, subscribe in iTunes or Google Play Music. Record your thoughts, questions, and suggestions about episodes in voice memos on your phone and email them to us at theinvestigators@abc27.com. We like those. We will play your voice. Please take a few minutes and leave us a review in iTunes. It helps our podcast reach other people and helps us figure out what we can improve upon. Thank you to Eric Semmel for producing this podcast, Jason Dietz for composing and recording the music. But it's time for us to go because we're on deadline.
Yay!
Good job, everybody.